Hello, it's Christmas 2020. How about that? We are almost through this year. Not quite, but almost. How you doing over there, Angela?
I am doing well. How about you, John?
Not bad, really. I just had a very quiet, restful day today. Not a lot going on. Susan's putting together a puzzle. I'm playing around with my website, and not much happening. Took the dog for a couple walks.
I bet the dog appreciated that.
She does. She's a girl.
Good.
I swear she gets more walks than any other dog in the neighborhood, but she needs them. She's a very
Yeah,
hyperactive dog. So
yeah, yeah. I've seen her. So that breed needs a lot of walking.
yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, they do go a little bit crazy. Toby's the
yeah.
same way. If they don't get a lot of walks, then and it's not just the exercise; it's the mental stimulation that they
Hmm.
need.
Oh
And
yeah, she
so,
has to smell all the smells and
yeah, yeah. The P mail, that's what we call it. Toby has to check his P mail
yeah.
and the other dogs that have been by and stuff like that.
Uh,
So yep, pretty much the same here. Got up and watched some Bridget Jones' Diary. That's one of my traditions. And then took Toby out. And I was mentioning to you earlier, we had a run in with a loose dog situation, and that wasn't good, but we were able to extricate ourselves from that situation without any major damage to either dog or myself. So, that worked out okay. It was exciting, though. Lots of adrenaline going for me. And definitely the most exciting part of my day was a dog fight. And then came home and decided to watch Bridget Jones' Diary with the commentary. And because I had never done that before.
hmm.
So pretty exciting stuff over here. After this, Jonathan's going to come by. He's never seen Christmas Vacation, and
Oh really?
and my mom is not pleased with that, so we need to set that right. And so I guess we'll be watching some Christmas Vacation
Okay.
after the show. So, yeah, that's the exciting stuff going on around here.
Well, and today, I don't know what exactly we're going to be doing, but maybe talking about Christmases past and Christmases present and dealing with Christmas and sobriety and
Yeah.
maybe engaging the folks. We got like 12 people in the room there.
Hello,
Hi, Bree. Merry
everyone.
Christmas to you. Hey, Bobby. Merry Christmas. Nice to see you all. Paula.
Yeah.
I was talking to Susan. I was like, I said, I don't know what kind of memories I really have. And she says, well, what kind of memories did you have of Christmas before you got into recovery? And I said, well, I had great Christmases when I was a kid, and everything. She said, but what about that time when you were drinking after your mom died and everything? Oh yeah. And I thought, well, I don't, that was kind of like a lost period of time. I don't know what was going on, quite
Yeah.
frankly. But honestly, I probably do. I mean, there was just a period of time where I didn't like associate with my family,
Mm.
very much. And, I hated Christmas and didn't want to be around people. That was basically the way I was. It's kind
Right.
of, I hate to say it, but that was me during that period of time. And I got to say, it was a little bit difficult getting sober. Hey there, ND. I don't know how to say that. ND Arthur. Anyway, it was a little bit different getting in and getting sober and getting into AA and uh, you know being around my family again. At that time, they were all still alive and well. And yeah, it was weird. It was different. I mean, I think the first Christmas I actually spent a good part of it with some AA friends. Um, and I actually did a lot of the holidays that way, so,
Yeah.
but how about you? What have you been thinking about?
Oh, I've been thinking about more the younger years
Mm-hmm.
of Christmas. My family's always been odd, but they're lovable,
Yeah.
and they did their best, and everybody did. But I was trying to think of when I developed the resentment against Christmas, because my birthday is a week exactly before
I know. You know
Christmas. And
what? I
so,
forgot that was last
yeah,
Friday was your birthday. I'm so
that's
sorry.
okay. Oh, no, no,
Happy belated birthday.
yeah, thanks. But growing up, that was always a big deal. That because everybody else got their own like birthday party and all of that, and I always got the this is for your birthday and Christmas thing, and so just total resentment against Christmas. And also the whole Santa Claus thing. When I realized that there wasn't a Santa Claus, and I recall, not being happy about it, but that I still had to pretend that there was for my sisters because
Yeah.
I had younger sisters, and yeah, and just the difference between that and the girls that I helped raise,
Hmm.
that they weren't raised with that, so they were never told there was a Santa Claus or
Oh, really?
or Christianity or anything. Yeah, because yeah, they were raised with reason,
With reason. Okay.
basically, um, and
It is kind of weird that we do that with kids,
yeah,
I
it,
mean,
it really is. 'Cause
I kind of knew when I was a little kid, this can't be.
right.
So,
Well, we tell them, to not take candy from strangers or stay away from
right.
strangers, but then this stranger is going to break into your house, and
Yeah.
and yeah, and they're watching you all the time. I mean, it's just kind of
That's
creepy.
creepy. That's creepy. I'll tell you one of my earliest Christmas memories. I mean, this goes back to the 1965, maybe.
Wow.
Seriously, I'm like 4 years old or so. And anyway, my parents were having this big party. They always having parties.
Mhm.
And for whatever damn reason, everybody at the party wanted to sing to me that song about you better watch out, you better
Mhm.
not shout, you better not cry. I'm telling you why. And it
Right.
made me cry. It made me cry because it was just
Oh,
freaking me out that there's this guy who's keeping this list on me. He's
yeah.
watching me. He knows what I'm sleeping. It kind of
That
freaked me out.
that's funny. I mean, that's
Yeah,
terrible, but it's
it
also
is
funny.
terrible. It
You
was a
know,
traumatic day,
my
but I'm
cousins
sure
tried
everybody thought
to.
it was funny, but I'm like, no. Well,
Yeah, my older cousins tried to do that with me when I was younger with the boogeyman, that
mm,
trying to tell me that the boogeyman was going to get me. But my mom referred to dancing as the boogie, and so I just kind of thought it was like some guy in a leisure suit coming towards
it's a
me.
good way of thinking about
Yeah, and right now that thought kind of terrifies me. But as
it.
a kid, it was just a guy dancing, and so
Yeah.
they couldn't figure out why I wasn't scared, and I couldn't figure out why they kept, saying that this dancer was coming for me. So yeah. But with Santa Claus, yeah, that was one of the things that I was thinking about, and that I'm still surprised that a lot of my friends who are, secular minded, they may
Hmm.
not be in recovery or anything, still do the Santa Claus thing.
Yeah.
I accidentally let the cat out of the bag a couple of years ago because I didn't know that. I assumed since they, weren't church going folk that, yeah, and I learned not to assume
Oh,
that, because yeah, that was not great news for one of the kiddos,
well,
and
you were good as a kid, humoring your siblings. I actually didn't. When I was,
you
it was
sat them
horrible. I was
down and
terrible.
you had
I
a
was
little
terrible. I
chalkboard.
had to prove to my little brother there wasn't a Santa Claus. It
Oh
was
my
awful.
gosh!
I know. I feel
Wow.
terrible about it. I
Yeah.
still remember the expression on his face. Poor thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
Yeah, and then people still do it. Like, and then you're lying to your kids, so you're supposed to
yeah.
trust your parents, but then this is a pretty big lie because it's a big deal each year that people go through over
You know what's funny
Christmas and
though? You talk
stuff. So
about I've talked to a lot of people who are atheists, obviously, and
mhm.
they will often say that they put two and two together when they said, you know what? I realized there wasn't an Easter bunny, there wasn't a Santa Claus, so there must not be a God either. It's all one and the same. So
Mm, yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, I guess I could see it that way. Although I did go to church, and there wasn't, as much people or like somebody who was in charge of telling us about Santa Claus each year or throughout the year. So I don't know that I would have come to it that way, but yeah, that works. I think
Yeah.
Jonathan might have found it that way as well, but no, I think I realized it by being, nosy and running around trying to find, the presents and what I was going to get and stuff, and finding the presents and then having them show up under the tree and say Santa Claus when I knew that they were in the closet previous to that. So I think that's how I discovered it. But yeah, I was one of the kids that I'd go to bed, and then about 4 a.m. is when I would often wake up and be ready to go. And so my mom had to put like a 6 a.m. rule. I could not wake up the family or go into the living room or anything like that until at least 6 a.m. And yeah, there were times when I had to wait, and it was grueling. We were just chatting about one year that it was the Cabbage Patch year, when Cabbage Patch Kids came out, and all of my friends had a Cabbage Patch Kid, and I wanted one so badly, and my mom really couldn't afford a Cabbage Patch Kid. But she did end up having a friend make one. So she had a friend who made them that looked very much the same, except they had a soft face, and made clothes for them and all of that kind of stuff. And so Christmas came, and I go running in there, and I'm opening presents, and I think it was just me and Darcy at that time, my middle sister, and she was she's 8 years younger than me, so she was really little, and so they're opening presents and stuff, and I go through all the presents, and I get to the last thing, and it's like a doll bed, and I just burst into tears because I'm like, they got me a doll bed but not a doll. And
Oh.
yeah, and like the Howard Jones song is going through my head, I'm sure. You can sit at the table but you just can't eat. I was a very dramatic kid. I was emo before emo was emo. And so yeah, I was in tears, and and what had happened was that they had actually put the doll just in a box, like in a Jack Daniels liquor store box, because that's what we put everything in. We moved around a lot, and that's where you go to get your moving supplies, is the back of the liquor store. And so yeah, so it was just in this box the entire time, and I didn't know it. And so they opened the box, and there was the doll, and so then I was happy, and things went well after that. But yeah, I remember that as being one major one. Another one was this was when I was probably in my teens, like my late teens, I think. And stockings were a big deal to us. I always liked stockings. It seemed like, cool, small stuff were in stockings. So they were usually more important to me as I got older. So I go to get my stocking, and it starts laughing at me. And I'm like, what the hell? And it's the Elmo laugh. And so I reach in there, and my mom's given me a keychain of Elmo's head. And so it's just Elmo's head. And I reach in and pull out Elmo's head, and it's laughing at me. And it was so disturbing.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, but funny, but disturbing at the same time. And so I really enjoyed going around showing people that, and telling people for, the last 20 something years that my mom, gave me Elmo's head for Christmas one year, or Santa Claus did. Sorry, I better get that right. But yeah, that was another one that was pretty funny. It was the Elmo head Christmas. Just like, and then she wonders why I drink. I mean, seriously, you give your kid an Elmo head. But yeah, those were a couple of them. And then, when I was drinking in those days, I was trying, and I don't know that I can remember actually any Christmas.
I know.
So I think that I, did stuff. So I partied, but I don't recall anything significant or important
Mm-mm.
on those days. And then, yeah, getting together, with Jonathan, one of the girls, when she was 9, the younger one, I think it was 8.5. It was the first Christmas we were together. She had decided, because her friend believed in Santa Claus still, that she was going to believe in Santa Claus, and so she made this argument that Santa Claus existed and stuff, and so we're like, okay, fine, but if you believe in Santa Claus, then you're going to get what Santa Claus gives you instead of cash, because they're used to getting cash
Oh,
for Christmas, and it's like, so you don't know what you're going to get. You get whatever Santa Claus thinks that you deserve, and that could be like just about anything. And she's like, fine, whatever, Santa Claus exists. And she kept that up until right before Christmas. And then she's like, okay, I changed my mind. You're right. Santa Claus doesn't exist. Where's my money? That kind of a thing. So it was just her way of rebelling against us. Was Santa Claus exists? We're like, okay, if you say so, kiddo. Same thing with when she went through. Well, she never really went through a God thing. Her friend really did, and so she, really, it was her best friend, and so she really wanted to. And they had watched the movie God Exists or something like that that
mm.
had come out. It was came out in the theaters, and so she kind of went with that, and we're like, okay, if that's what you want to believe, if you want to go to church, we'll take you to church, which one or how many, or all of that stuff. So we didn't tell them that they couldn't explore any of that kind of stuff, but we're just realistic with them, and it's been such a different upbringing than what I had. And so, yeah, so that's been kind of I still do the stocking things though, but I do that for the kids and for my mom and sisters and stuff like that. Still do stockings, and that's kind of, my big thing. And I can watch a couple of movies, and at times I've gone and looked at lights, and this year just kind of kept it pretty basic. But did a lot of church as a kid. So part of my story is that we moved around quite a bit, not outside of this area, but we were evicted a lot because, my stepdad was rapid cycling bipolar and
Yeah.
undiagnosed. And so I went to 7 different schools and grade school. So yeah, I lived in different places, and I had learned that if you go to the local church, that people there would, make their kids become friends with you. And so that's how I made friends. And so I was in multiple Christmas pageants and stuff. And so I do recall being a shepherd, and that included wearing a bathrobe, and then having a towel on your head and a garland around the top of the towel to hold it on. And so that was the shepherd outfit. And I do have a picture of that somewhere. So that was, one of the better pageants. After I became secular, an atheist, I was not the most generous with my mom. When she'd talk about Christmas, I would tell her all the stuff that I had learned about, history, and if there was a historical Jesus, what, that birth narrative would have been like, and, things like that. And since, then I've not gone into that kind of detail unless someone asks me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't generous at the time. I was, very much telling everybody what I thought about that, because part of it was kind of like the Santa Claus thing of being lied to,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, well, you grow out of the Santa Claus thing. Why don't you grow out of this? But after a while, I calmed down, and sometimes she would ask me to come to the Christmas Eve service, and I could tolerate that. The church that she was going to at the time had a huge choir. music
Mm-hmm.
program. And so there were like 10 different choirs. And so they had them like all age groups, and there were like 2 or 3 bell choirs and things like that. And I do like, a lot of Christmas music. Trans-Siberian Orchestra makes it, more enjoyable with electric guitars, but yeah, I would do that with my mom, and that was, something that I just kind of, did with her. It wasn't terrible, it wasn't great, but it was something that I did because it was something that she liked, and so I haven't done that for a long time because she's been okay with going to her services on her own, or she brings my niece or something like that. So those are some of the things that have been coming up for me today on Christmas, and what it means to me, or what it has meant. I mentioned before, one of the things that I think in early recovery that's difficult is family negotiations. And I was speaking with somebody yesterday who's newer in recovery, and they still feel like they have to go to their parents who have some behaviors that are not alcoholic, but may not be the healthiest,
Right.
and so it's stressful and dramatic and all of that, and and it's hard because in my mind I'm like, you don't have to do that. You can make your own choice to not be a part of that, but I do recall that in the beginning it's not that easy. You still
No.
feel, or at least I still felt like I needed to do these things, that it was important, and that it was expected of me, and it would be more difficult if I didn't, and cause more problems and all of that kind of stuff. And so thinking about the journey of learning who you are, and what you want to do, and how you want to celebrate, if you celebrate, or how you protest if you want to protest, and do the Grinch thing. You can do that, but it's not always cut and dry, particularly in early sobriety,
No.
because man, the first few Christmases without stuff to numb you, yeah, it can be rough, particularly if your family is dysfunctional.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
no,
it's
I
hard
do.
to know when you're at that point,
Yeah,
and or depending on what kind of life experiences you had. I didn't at that point have that much experience behind me to know how to to know who wasn't healthy and so forth. It took me a while to figure that out.
right.
But I tell you, if you have someone in your family like I do, and I know that you grew up with your father too, but who's really seriously mentally ill,
Hmm.
boy, I tell you, you I had to make a decision, how involved I wanted to be with trying to rescue my brother whenever he, got in trouble because of his
Hmm.
mental illness. And, I really I had to kind of protect myself, Angela, and my life,
Hmm.
and decide that I wasn't going to just jump off and run off and go try to rescue him every time that he um, had an incident, because
Yeah.
it wasn't doing anybody any good. It wasn't doing me any good. It wasn't doing him any good. And it's kind of a sad thing, but yeah, I really learned from that that's just kind of an extreme situation. But you could have somebody who's just kind of like an asshole and mean to you, and just
Hmm.
and it's what they will do to you is just it just tears you down little by little. It's not good.
Right. Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
but it's a journey, learning that, and
Yeah.
learning to be okay. I know I felt guilty at times with different boundaries
Oh
that
yeah.
I had to set. Even though it was the right thing to do, and I knew it was the healthy thing to do, it still didn't feel good because of my dysfunctional family upbringing. That
And
that
different
this is
people in
how
the
you're.
family will
Yeah.
have different takes on it too. Like that's what happened with
Right.
my brother. It's like I decided, no, I'm not going to do this. This is my line. I'm not going to get involved. I can't handle it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But my sister says, no, you've got to. His life depends upon it. Blah 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 blah. And so she was all in, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so we all had different degrees of how we were going to deal with it. And unfortunately, that really caused a real rift between the rest of us, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But again, you got to say, wait, I can't, it was really too much. It was too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I love my brother, but it was too much,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So,
Well, and it's unfortunate that, um, I think it's becoming more common for people to seek therapy and not, not be,
yeah,
scared of it or worry about what other people think
yeah,
and things like that, which is great because
yeah,
I think that that's been a real key in my life for my development. And my mom and I, joke about it a lot that that we really don't understand or trust people that don't go to
mm,
therapy. I mean, you don't have to go to it all the time, but if somebody hasn't ever been to therapy, we give them the side eye, like, okay, yeah, there's only so much that we're going to trust you with. And because there's so much that I think we can discover about
yeah,
ourselves. And
yeah,
and even if you had a pretty great family, a lot of the attachment theory talks about that. You could have had the best parents, but there'll be little things that
sure.
you don't process the way an adult would because you're a child. And so there's little rifts, and
Hmm.
those could be easily resolved and worked through, and your life would be better. But we're still learning about a lot about that kind of stuff. And so I'm interested in how the future is going to progress in that way on how people learn about themselves. And same with sobriety and what's going on in the recovery community. Now we have things like AA Beyond Belief and other groups and websites and things that talk about different ways to get and stay sober. Or if your sobriety is not your thing, just recovery in general. And I have a lot of hope and excitement about
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah, it's amazing, looking back on this past year that this has been the year of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know. I haven't been to an AA meeting, an in-person AA meeting since March.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are that way, but yet I'm still very much involved with AA online. There's a lot of stuff going on online now more than ever, and more people jumping online and getting connected, especially finding secular meetings and learning about, this podcast and the
Mm-hmm.
website and so forth. So it's really interesting to see that having happened this last year. It's changed a lot for me personally, but it's also changed, I'm sure, for AA in general, as far as how we are reaching out to people and how people are finding us is just a whole different deal now. I wonder, I've not talked to anybody in our central office, but I wonder if anyone's even calling there anymore, you know?
Yeah, and I've heard that they are at ours,
Hmm.
and some of that is that there are meetings going on because
Yes, I
we're
think
Idaho, and
I know.
and so yeah, so a lot of the stuff, you can't tell me what to do, which is surprising that so many of us wear pants and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
still, yeah, there are meetings going on,
I think there
and
probably are here too. I don't know
yeah.
for sure. I think most of the larger groups here are not meeting, but there might
Mhm.
be some that are. So,
Yeah, yeah. I haven't. I know that there are some small groups of people, like a group of 5 and stuff that will get together in somebody's yard, but they're doing the proper protocols to the best that they can. It was easier during the summer, but now they've got like some sort of a fire pit or something going. But there are people that really do not feel like they can stay sober via Zoom,
yeah.
and well, for me, that's hard for me to understand. I also know that it's not it's not unrealistic, I guess. There's a lot of things that other people need that I don't understand. I'm glad that they have that outlet, and particularly like in that case, that they're being safe about it. I recall when this started that I was mostly upset about people who felt like if they didn't meet in person, they really were going to drink and die. And so that's what got me, on. I mean, I'd always, had in my
I
mind
remember people
AA as a cult, but that
it
was
was
definitely
weird.
something that triggered that cult
Do you
button
remember
for me.
people would say something like, they would present this false choice? Well, it's either die from COVID or die from not going to a meeting. Did you hear people
Yeah,
say stuff like
that
that?
was something that going on
I'm
around
like,
here.
oh, that was
I'd rather,
insane.
I'd rather die from COVID than from alcoholism. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, there's lots of other ways to die. Shall we like write some stuff out? I can think of a lot of
Yeah.
different ways you could die.
Yeah.
And
That was bizarre though. There were people that actually felt that way. They felt like,
yeah, no,
wow, if I
no,
can't go to an
there's
in-person
still
meeting.
people that feel
Hmm.
that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, some of them do go to meetings, and
Yeah.
I was told by somebody that I sponsor yesterday that loosely sponsor. I don't do the traditional sponsoring anymore,
Yeah.
and that's been something that has really happened in the last year. I kind of leaned away from it because even with the person who I've called my sponsor for years, it's just more of a pure kind of relationship anyway.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of what I have going. But this person is newer, so a little bit more of a guiding hand towards them, and they go to some of these in-person meetings because a lot of the rehabs are still having them and stuff
Mm.
as well. And so they let me know that one of them that happens down at the bowling alley, that one is actually having to wear masks now, that the Board of Health or somebody came in and threatened to shut the thing down if they didn't. And so so they're wearing masks now. So that's good to know that they're at least have an awareness
Yeah.
about doing that, and if that's what they need to do, the in-person thing, then if they're doing it safely, then cool. If they're not, then it's hard for me, on an emotional level. But again, it's not something that I can do a lot about,
Yeah.
particularly in isolation. So,
There's
so yeah,
some interesting comments going on
yeah.
here in the chat here. And they're talking about, Anchor mentions it. Anchor
Mhm,
says that kind of hard to get sober in AA as an atheist without having therapy, or at least it was for
mhm,
me. And then Bobbert said that Bobbert got sober in therapy before getting to AA. And what I find interesting about that is I did a podcast episode that we just published on this last Wednesday with Colette. And Colette, her initial problem was anorexia,
mhm,
and she went to get treatment for anorexia, and the treatment was all therapy. And in therapy, her therapist noticed that she had problems besides her anorexia, also had a drinking problem, and suggested AA, and she kind of balked at that, and had some problems with drinking, and relapsed. And so anyway, she finally got into AA, but only after having a lot of therapy, going through a lot of therapy.
right.
And so her experience was, she already did a lot of work before actually getting into the program. And it was kind of interesting listening to her talk about that process that she went through. It sounds like it's really similar to what Bobbert did, going through that process first, and then getting into recovery, or meeting other people in recovery.
Right.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense to me because if you're already diehard atheist, and and you have the means to do therapy, then then that's the way that I would have gone.
Yeah.
But I was also poor, and
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so there wasn't that option. I really, really wanted to be glamorous. Sandra Bullock going to a glamorous rehab or something.
I
But
still have not watched that movie, 30 Days or 28 Days. I can't
oh
remember.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
gotta see that one of these
You
times.
should watch it. We can chat about it. The
Yeah,
realism, then the
we'll
lack
do
of
a
it,
we'll
whatever.
do a movie show.
Yeah, yeah. But that's what I really had wanted. Yeah, I did not get that kind of a
Nah,
experience,
me either.
and so I got sober within the rooms, as they say. And Yeah. Uh, and somewhere within about, I think, the 2 week mark, I did go to the emergency room again because I thought I was having a heart attack, and it turns out I had anxiety,
Mm.
which I never had been diagnosed with before. Even prior to drinking heavily, even when because before drinking heavily I was compulsively overeating, and so I I never didn't recognize that I was doing that, that it was part of anxiety. And so that was something that was discovered when I no longer had both the ability to compulsively overeat, and using alcohol. And so yeah, it was to learn about anxiety. And what else in my first 30 days? Yeah, that was the main thing. And it was a lot of trying to figure out what I was going to do for the third step, because I really, really did want to outdo everybody else with a higher power, and mine had to be bigger and better or something, because if I was going to have to pick one, you had to bigger than the doorknob and taller than the light bulb, and all of the other traditional religions. That wasn't going to work for me, so went through the Hindu religions and yeah, and just when it came down to it, none of that was going to work. And I was somewhat scared, because they told me that that I had to have something, because there was going to be that time when there was the only thing between me and a drink was my higher power. And so I really did try to figure out something that I could wedge in there as a go-between. And yeah, and I never actually had to wedge something in there. I guess the closest thing was that I did carry my 24-hour coin in my pocket, and that just kind of reminded me that I
Yeah,
was
I
part of
used to always
something
do that.
bigger than myself.
Yeah, I always did
And
that.
so
I carried the coin for many years, many
yeah.
years as a reminder.
Yeah, well, maybe they were magic and we just didn't
They
know
were
it,
just magic.
So
I
yeah,
it was just
it's
comforting for
because everybody put a
yeah.
prayer on it when they passed it around the room
Right.
and
Well,
stuff,
yeah. Yeah, I
and
don't know
so
when
and
that
so it was a higher power working out for us despite
yeah.
our atheism. But no, I think it was just the reminder, the tangible, physical feeling of it, that reminded me that I was part of something that's bigger than myself, and that was helpful. I mean, because it kind of goes to a sense of purpose,
Yeah.
and I think that's what a lot of people really, I think that's what we need in life, is a sense of purpose. And sometimes that's something that seems like a really big deal, and sometimes it's just to try to be a decent person and be nice, and not
Mhm.
purposefully kill people, that kind of a thing. So
Bob here says we're not going to go back to the old normal. He says that a lot of us are not going to go into contact. We might be wearing masks for quite some time. And Bree made a comment that interested me because she's from my home group. She says
mhm.
that she there's like 25 to 30 people in the meeting, but there's only about 2 or 3 of them that she's ever actually met in person. So um, and I don't even go to our meetings anymore. So I don't know, I think I have a feeling that a lot of the people are not from Kansas City, maybe,
Mhm,
and you're just getting people from all over.
mhm.
God, it's really interesting. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
a,
that's kind of what our thing is about, or
mhm.
our home group. And and there doesn't seem like there's much weird about it. So,
No, it seems pretty
you know,
normal. Yeah, doesn't it?
yeah, I mean,
And
it's
I guess
because
like
there's
people
the
just
same,
find they find the meetings they like online.
yeah,
So, there could be other people in KC that we used to come together in person, and they'd say, I really like these people in Seattle or whatever, and they might be going to those meetings and doing other things. I
yeah.
wonder if anybody out there in the chat, if you can tell me if your group's meeting online, if it's still mainly your regular core group, or is it a different group now where you're having people from around the world joining you? I don't even go to meetings anymore. I,
Yeah.
I'm just doing this AA Beyond Belief stuff all the time, it seems. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do different meetings. I mainly do my home group, but I do the Thursday meeting now. As I've discussed before, our group decided to do Tuesday and Thursday. We, for a very long time, 11 years, did just Tuesday, and so when Zoom happened, we decided, someone asked, can we do Thursday as well? And we're like, well, why not? And so we started doing that. And a couple of months ago, I decided that I would just do the Thursday one. And I'm enjoying that. It's a slightly smaller group than what the Tuesday one had become. And yeah, a couple of people that come there have been, probably more loyal as far
mhm.
as there's one person who's been to every Tuesday and Thursday, has not missed a single Tuesday or Thursday since we started, and
Oh,
and they live in Kingston, Ontario. So
hmm.
so yeah, so we it feels to me like it's kind of the same thing. It's you have certain people that are kind of, I don't know, stereotypes in AA, or the standbys, that have certain stories and stuff. And yes, we are all unique snowflakes or something of that sense. There are still, some people that you can, pick out in meetings, and that seems to be the same to me. There's those, people in the meetings, and it still feels very much, at least our meeting still feels very much family-like, or communal. And even though I haven't met probably half the people in the meeting
Yeah.
in person, it doesn't feel abnormal to me. It
No.
seems, totally okay. And yeah, it was funny because for my birthday, Jackie sent me a sweatshirt because I had commented in some meeting on a sweatshirt she was wearing. So she sent me one, but she didn't know what size to get me because she's never seen me from the waist down. And so we laughed about that, because that had never occurred to me either, that we only see each other in Zoom meetings, or talk a little bit on here and stuff. And so yeah, I think after there's a vaccine, and things are a little bit, I don't think everything's going to be going back to normal.
No.
I think it's going to be different, and I think there's going to be a greater need for therapy, to develop some more trust amongst our fellow Americans and stuff.
Mhm.
And yeah, we'll see if Canada lets us in or not. I wouldn't blame them if they didn't. But yeah, I think that the Zoom meetings are going to continue. A lot of them.
Yeah.
I know that our Thursday one will. We'll see what happens with the Tuesday one. I think the plans right now are for it to go to in person. But I'm pretty sure the Unitarian Fellowship has said that they are not opening their doors for group gatherings until possibly May or June, and we'll see about that. And most of the group members are cool with that and understanding. But we'll see if vaccines roll out sooner, then we'll probably go to the script that we wrote out, prior to everything going online immediately. We had developed a plan of, how to arrange the seating and do, safe distancing and that kind of stuff. And so I think that, we'll still do that as the meetings start going again. But yeah, we're still a little ways off from that.
Joe M is making some really interesting comments, and I've never heard of this kind of stuff before. He said, first of all, he made a comment early on about when he was a kid, when he was 14 years old, he went out to the barn and he spent the night there because he was told that the animals would kneel down at some time of the night.
That's awesome.
I guess he was disappointed when he found out the animals were just sleepy or whatever they do.
Yeah.
But then he also does this thing where he says that his group, one of his groups gives a $1 coin your first year, and they drill a hole in it every year thereafter. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
That's interesting.
As far as drilling holes in coins, in our group, one of the old timers, Wally, the old timer Wally, he has a tradition of giving on his birthday the amount of years as his seventh tradition that he's getting. So I've started doing that too, where, on each sobriety anniversary, I give the dollars in the amount of years that I've been sober. So, but yeah, I know that there's some talk about coins and things like that. And I've mentioned before that I like getting, trinkets and things for doing stuff. I'm highly reward oriented, apparently. Me and Toby, huh, Toby?
Oh.
Yeah. So although he doesn't like trinkets as much, he would prefer dog biscuits. So that's how we do things. But yeah, I mean, I still have my little coin that I made myself for my first 30 days of isolation, and then after that, it got to be a bit much. So haven't made one, but who knows? It may turn into a year coming up. But it was interesting. Jonathan and I were talking about that. It was around this time last year that he had started noticing information going on in China about something happening, and so he was watching that and keeping an eye on that kind of stuff. And so at the end of January is when we had already, stocked up on toilet paper and hand sanitizer and all of that kind of stuff. He had ordered masks and quite a few family members were making fun of us because we're not preppers. We've never been preppers, but he was very concerned about this. So yeah, and here we are almost, a year about all of that stuff, and it's Christmas time, and who would have thought it, Yeah. Who would have thought it? So
I was kind of distracted, this coin thing. It's kind of bizarre, but they would drill. So Anchor says, what do you do when, you run out of coin? You have so many holes. And Joe says that you're dead by the time that, what the longest, the most holes they ever had was 45 holes in a coin. I was also wondering if they're using the big silver dollars or the little dollar coins. I always think of a dollar coin as being the big ones, the big like Eisenhower silver dollars, but no, they're the tiny little things now. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. And then they were talking about the coins, where they came from. And Joe said it was Sister Ignatia, I believe, in Akron that would give out medallions for people. Or Anchor said that would give out medallions. I don't know. Someone said that. I think that's true. I have a story about medallions or coins rather. That's kind of, I guess it's true, but I remember hearing this when I was like just a year or two sober. Someone told the story. And then fast forward many, many years later, like 27 years later, I hear the same damn story from a guy who actually experienced it. But here's the story. So somewhere out in Kansas, western Kansas, there's a treatment center, and they give out coins to people when they leave treatment and stuff. And nearby the treatment center is a bar. And you go into that bar, and on the bar sits a big jar full of these coins that people will turn in for a drink. So they would leave treatment and they would give the bartender one of their coins, and for that he would get a drink. Anyway, it's apparently a true story, because this guy in our Sunday meeting shared that story of the bar in Kansas that did that. Now, have you ever heard that? Because I used to think it was like one of those urban legends.
Right.
But
Yeah, I have.
you have
I
heard
think
that?
it is, somewhat of an urban legend as well. But yes, I've heard that people have done that before, and at
Yeah.
various bars, and I'm sure, at least the bar scene that I hung out in, that there would be some bartenders that would probably do that just, as a joke, or, something along those lines. So but I don't know if there's one that has like some sort of giant jar that you put your sobriety coin in and you get a drink for, and stuff. Because
I
yeah,
never
I haven't
believed.
seen any,
I've never
and
believed
I was
that.
a bar drinker. And I'm pretty sure, because I was part of the hipster scene, if that did exist, it would exist in the hipster scene in one of those bars, because
Yeah.
that would be a hipster kind of thing. And yeah, they would love that. There'd be like a John Deere sticker on the front of it, I'm pretty sure. And then yeah, but yeah, I haven't actually seen it happen. Or anything.
No, I've never seen it.
But
But I've heard the story twice, and they were many, many
yeah.
decades apart. But the guy that told it last time was like, "Wow, you're like." I think that's the first time I've ever heard anybody from firsthand experience. But who knows? Who knows?
Mhm.
I think it's kind of an urban legend, but
Yeah.
it could be true.
Yeah.
But it's an urban legend if you've heard it too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
You know, it's not this
well,
place in
and I think
Kansas.
there might have been in movies. I think it's happened a few
Yeah.
times. There's an independent film. I can't think of the name of it right now, where I know, that's a scene in it where a guy has some sobriety, and then he like goes back to his hometown, and is trying to meet the kid that he abandoned, or some sort of thing like that, and gets stressed out, and then goes to the bar, and yeah, gives the guy the coin and gets a drink and blah blah blah. So anyway, yeah, so it's but I don't know anybody that has done that. But
We
it's
should think
a funny
sometime.
thing to
I
do.
wonder how many urban legends there are just, in AA. That's one I know of anyway, but I know there's got to be some others. It'd be kind of interesting to maybe put a list together of these urban legends that existed. These stories that you've always heard, it's like, and you hear them repeatedly from, is that really right?
Right. Yeah. Well, there's, since we're talking about coins, there's the ones that are, like you said, where did the coin thing come from? Was it the sister in Akron, or,
Ignatia.
yeah, was it, I heard that the very first coins were poker chips, and,
Yes.
some people, said that they were just like little wood chip type things that, somebody would whittle, a number into or something. And so, yeah, so there's lots of fun, weird stuff. I mean, we're alcoholics. We're not quite
Yeah.
right. So, who knows? Who knows what it is or what they
Bob
could be?
is an
There's
urban
lots of
legend.
stuff. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and Bob also said that his group is meeting in person, and that is interesting to me too. That I just know, I guess, but outside of America, things are really, really different. Although I think
Mm-hmm.
now it's getting worse everywhere now. But there
Mm-hmm.
was a time when like things were kind of normal, like getting normal in other parts of the world,
Yeah.
but not here.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's like,
I think, slightly prior to 2016, normal is no longer something that will ever be a part of the
mm-mm,
United States.
mm-mm.
So we are forever changed. And yeah, so it might get, different, but I think it's going to be like sobriety. It's always going to be different.
Yeah.
And you know, that we'll get by, at least some of us.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you one thing I have enjoyed during this year of COVID is the special event type things that go on online. I
yeah.
mean, there's been a few that I've really enjoyed, and some that I've been able to participate in, like as behind the scenes, working as a
Hmm.
stagehand or whatever.
Yeah.
But I've been to one Higher Palooza, at least
Hmm.
one Higher Palooza. I've
Hmm.
been to like a history thing. I've
Hmm.
been to the secular AA virtual ICSA,
Hmm.
and just a couple of different. Oh yeah, the emotional sobriety. I kind of those things are kind of fun. I kind of enjoy
Hmm.
those things, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of them. And now Joe C is going to be starting up along with Jerry B
Hmm.
is going to be starting up a speaker meeting, an online speaker meeting, and that's going to start on January the 3rd. And it's the first speaker is going to be Kim B from Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah.
Um, she got sober during COVID, and then Declan O apostrophe H from Dublin will be speaking, and that's going to be January the 3rd. And it's posted somewhere. We'll post it on somewhere here, but yeah, so that's January 3rd. It's going to be on Zoom. I don't know what time or anything. Anyway, there's a flyer somewhere about it. Oh, here it is. Here,
Somewhere exists a flyer that
I will
talks
share
about.
this screen with the people so they can see it.
Yeah.
Share.
I did look for. I was going to send you some pictures of some of my childhood Christmases to go with the
Oh,
stories
that'd be
that were
fun.
coming up, and I couldn't find in America uh, any of the Americas um, an Elmo head keychain, but there is a Japanese one. So one from Japan that is just an Elmo head. So proof that they did create Elmo head keychains and that my mom did not just cut off the head of Elmo and sew it together, which she is an excellent seamstress. I mean, she made all of my Barbie clothes when I was young, and
Ah,
that takes some talent to sew Barbie clothes.
huh,
So yeah, I was concerned at first, but no, these things were actually mass produced. So
huh.
um, yeah, she's not that weird. Well,
Well,
she is
here's the
pretty weird.
flyer. It's the first Sunday International Secular A, January 3rd, noon PST, 3 p.m. at 3 o'clock Eastern time. And then everyone should do the math from there. Anyway,
Okay,
so that'll be,
p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Do the
yeah,
math.
do the math and figure out what the time zone is.
Yeah,
I can't figure out every time zone in the world,
really.
but
Hmm.
I just Google. That's what I
Yeah.
do.
Yep. The Googling.
Well, Angela, I guess what
Yeah,
time is it? Is it about
it
that
is.
time?
It's about
Yeah.
that time. We made it through a Christmas or a 25th of December or a is I think Yule's supposed to be the 24th, and at least in my Norwegian friend
Mm.
celebrates it on the 24th. So, but we made it through that stuff. So
Yeah.
next week it'll be the first, and so everybody can talk about being sober and not being hungover, because that'll
Right.
be I think most of us still appreciate that. At least every
Yeah.
time I get the flu, I, I appreciate my sobriety
Yeah.
because I forget how bad it was to wake up or come to in the morning and feeling like crap, and getting the flu reminds me of that each time. So that might be something we can talk about next week.
Yeah.
Is yeah, sobriety and our first uh, New Year
Yeah.
that we could remember after we got sober.
Can you believe that we've been doing these as many live streams as we've done now? Starting back in March and doing
Yeah,
them every week since then.
yeah. It's kind of crazy, and
It is
people,
crazy.
are still, there's 16 people chatting with us,
I
which is pretty
know. I
cool.
know. I know. I know. It's
Yeah,
funny. when we first started this, who knew? I think you maybe had an idea that this was going to go on much longer. I thought, okay, this is going to happen 3-6 months. And then we go back to our normal lives. I'm kind of thinking, but no.
No, I knew our lives wouldn't be normal very soon, but I didn't know that the live stream would continue on.
I know.
So yeah.
It's fun though. I like it. I like it. It's fun. I like having the chance to actually talk with everybody in the chat room, taking the occasional caller.
And there's something that just makes me happy about how the chat room is like crosstalk, and I don't know, maybe it's just my rebel part of me that's like, haha, we're having a meeting and allowing people to do crosstalk. No.
It's
the
funny
AA
because
police
sometimes
are going to bust in or something. I don't know.
Sometimes they'll have their own little conversation going on in the chat room that's totally different than whatever we're talking about.
Yeah.
but I like that. It's like today they were talking about the drilling the holes in the coins. Like, what are you guys talking about? That's crazy. Drilling holes in coins. Yeah. Anyway, I'd like to see one of those coins.
Yeah, we need more information about that coin situation, because it's going to drive John crazy. And so if you have a picture of it, at least, because I've not seen anything like that.
I said send it in, like in the old days.
Send it in. I will expect it at P.O. Box.
Oh man! Well, thank you everybody for being here, and Merry Christmas to you all. I hope it was a good Christmas for everybody, and that we were all sober and happy and healthy. And we'll be back again next week for the new year. Thank goodness, getting past 2020.
It'll be New Year's Day. Yeah.
So I will say.
Bye-bye.
There we go. Bye-bye, everybody. That's it. That's another episode of AA Beyond Belief, the podcast. We'll be back again next week for a brand new year, 2021. Who would have thought? Wow. So y'all, take care. Be well. We'll be talking again real soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.